I'm Michael Fossel. At Telocyte, we're about to do something that has no historical precedent. Most people feel that you cannot cure Alzheimer's disease. We have a very different idea. Not only is there an enormous global market, literally $1 trillion market, but this is only the first step in a medical revolution. We're confident that we can show we can not only cure Alzheimer's disease, but other age-related dementias such as Parkinson's, and then other age-related diseases. Before I start, let me put this in perspective. When it comes to trying to cure Alzheimer's disease, everything fails. There have been more than 1,100 registered interventional trials, all of which have failed. And this includes not only big companies like Eli Lilly, Roche, and Biogen, as well as other global pharmaceutical companies, but literally hundreds of other biotech firms which have failed. Well, as a result of that sort of failure, about a year ago, the Alzheimer's Association paid me to give a talk in Washington on why we fail and why is it that, quote, everything works in mice, nothing works in humans. And what I pointed out was that while we have targets like beta amyloid, and we have techniques like monoclonal antibodies, what we entirely lack is an overall model to explain why it is that Alzheimer's occurs in the first place, why it is we get beta amyloid. And the things we look at, like beta amyloid, aren't found in mice. So it's small wonder that translational studies, trying to go from mice to human studies, fail utterly. After I gave the talk, not only was I complimented by more people than I'm used to, but I was invited to write up the entire model by the editor-in-chief of Alzheimer's and Dementia, which is the world's most important Alzheimer's journal. He then asked to join our scientific advisory board because he was impressed by where we're going with this. Well, the paper was reviewed by 8 reviewers who not only felt that it was a good paper, but wanted me to write even more about their particular issue or question. When the paper came out in January of this year, within 2 weeks it generated more than 500 reprint requests, which has never been seen before the publisher made it open access because there were so many people interested in it. It also generated more than 24 requests for me to give keynote addresses, which I declined because my interest is practical, not simply in giving talks. More importantly, it's generated well more than 12 interested parties who are investment firms, and we're now in negotiation with a global consortium to fund this as we take it to FDA human trials. What the paper says is that there's a way to understand exactly how age-related dementias such as Alzheimer's occur, and that explanation is entirely consistent with all known clinical data, and it's particularly valid too. It explains exactly why Eli Lilly and Biogen fail, and numerically explains their results before they get them. Much more importantly, though, it offers an innovative point of intervention, one that's feasible and can be taken to FDA human trials. What we're doing is addressing the root cause, not symptoms or downstream biomarkers like beta amyloid, but in fact the underlying causes. And as a result, we're confident that we can not merely slow Alzheimer's or even just stop it, but actually reverse the cognitive decline seen in Alzheimer's patients. Furthermore, we can do this quickly and efficiently. Efficiently because we have the right target, so we'll expect to see results in all of our initial phase 1 human patients. We can do this cheaply and we can do it fast, certainly more so than any other company has been able to do today. Quickly also because we meet the criteria for expedited status, not only the FDA criteria, but the European Medicines Agency criteria. So instead of going to commercialization in 5 or 10 years, we can do it in something over 3 years. Now, what we're giving is a single-dose gene therapy. It probably needs to be re-given in 5 or 10 years, but it's a single-dose treatment. The vector we're using is an adeno-associated virus, which has already been cleared by the FDA for human trials. In fact, the initial human trials that went through the FDA were designed by the same person who helped design our human protocol as we move forward with our trial. The plasmid we're using is a normal human telomerase gene and a promoter, all of which have been well known to other trials. I've had informal discussions with the FDA and CBER in Washington. We're ready to proceed with formal FDA application. Bluntly, we can anticipate an effective intervention in a phase 1 human trial within 2 years at a cost of only $10 million. We can finish the phase 2 trial for an additional $15 million, and at that point, move forward toward commercialization. We anticipate an exit someplace between phase 1 and phase 2, given the outcomes of our trials. Let me compare that to other companies. Currently, there are 5 drugs in the global market which purport to treat Alzheimer's disease. They are symptomatic only, and they have never been shown to have any effect on the outcome of Alzheimer's. The disease course proceeds without change. As a result, over the past decade or so, a number of companies like those listed here have moved upstream a bit and focused on things like beta amyloid, tau tangles, mitochondrial dysfunction. The problem is these are not the underlying cause, and as a result, there's been clinical failure. What we've done is move upstream and ask ourselves what causes all of these. And the answer has to do with changes in gene expression, cell aging, and cell senescence. And we can, in fact, intervene effectively at exactly that level. You might reasonably ask, what causes cell aging? Well, certainly chronologic aging does, but a number of other things play a role. For example, diabetes, hypertension, genetic predilection, trauma, infection, exposure to toxins. All of these things have a role to play. But in fact, when you intervene at that level, there are so many dozens or even hundreds of these factors that any intervention has had very little outcome in terms of Alzheimer's or other age-related diseases. And the same is true downstream, whether you're looking at beta amyloid, tau tangles. No matter where you intervene, these are ineffective points of intervention. They're inefficient targets. They don't work very well. It's sort of whack-a-mole, and they don't work. What does work very well is if you go after cell aging and shorten telomeres, because it's the efficient target. In many ways, I would say I'm not interested in what causes Alzheimer's so much as I'm interested in a less academic question, but a more practical and clinical question, which is, where is the single most effective point of intervention, clinically and financially? And that point of intervention is cell aging and the telomere. More importantly, this is not theoretical. This actually works. When you take telomerase therapy and use it on human cells or human tissues or on animals, what you find is it's quite effective. Not only can you reset senescence in cells and restore neural function, but you can reverse cognitive decline. There is good solid data, and there's complete proof of concept. This is not theoretical, it works. Our scientific advisory board is much the same. These are practical people with global reputations for credibility. Every one of these people runs a company or an institute. They balance a budget, they meet a bottom line. They're well known and well trusted. Example, Suzanne Hendricks. If I'm designing a clinical trial for Alzheimer's and I need to design the statistical analysis as well, Suzanne is the person I go to. In fact, she designed the Biogen Eastside trial. She runs a company out of Salt Lake City, and she's behind what we do. The same is true of Russell Swerdlow. He's a globally known neurologist who runs FDA Alzheimer's trials. He's the co-director of an Alzheimer's center in Kansas University Medical Center, and he helped design, along with Suzanne, our human protocols. Joe Araujo is a person you go to. He runs into Vivo Solutions out of Toronto, and if I'm, again, Biogen or Eli Lilly and I'm eating animal trials, I go to Joe. Mamoun Azouz is the director of a translational gene therapy institute in the university in the UK. And again, he's involved in taking academic studies through the human trials. Finally, Zavin Khatchatourian is well known to the NIA and the NIH. He's a chief consulting scientist for the Alzheimer's Association and the editor-in-chief of Alzheimer's and Dementia. He's the one who asked to join our board. All of these people are behind us because they think we can take this human trial and succeed. For my own part, I have a background with a BA and a master's in psychology, followed by both an MD and a PhD from Stanford University, where I used to teach neuroanatomy for several years in the medical school. I'm the author of more than 100 articles and chapters and books, including The Telomerase Revolution, which the Wall Street Journal called one of the best 5 science books of the year, and the author of the only textbook in this area published by Oxford University Press, Cells, Aging, and Human Disease. Our CEO, Peter Racin, and our COO, Mark Hodges, have extensive careers over decades globally, working throughout this world as executives running not only companies but large groups of people, and we're involved in aerospace and information technology. Very practical people. Our partners likewise. PPD is probably the world's most trusted contract research organization. They have an excellent reputation for dealing with clients and with dealing with the FDA. Lonza is one of the most trusted viral vector producers in the world. We chose them for exactly that reason. When I go to the FDA, the majority of their interest is not simply in the science and the medicine involved, but the quality of the viral vector, and Lonza is well trusted and well known to the FDA. The same is true of Cooley, our attorneys. They're known globally because they handle more in the way of biotech and gene therapy companies than anyone else in the world. They handle our gene therapy IP. All 3 of these companies are our partners, and they stand behind us. What we're offering is an investment that's part of a medical revolution. That's true of the people already talking with us as a global consortium. They know that we are credible, we have an effective intervention, and we address an enormous global market. If you're interested in discussing this with us or with our investors, I'd be happy to talk with you further.